The kitchen clock read 2:17 a.m. when I found myself staring at the glowing screen of my wife's phone. And let me tell you, Insomnia never felt so educational. I'm Aidan Brooks, 46 years old, and until 3 minutes ago, I thought I knew everything about my wife of 22 years. Turns out, I knew absolutely nothing. The phone had been buzzing incessantly like an angry wasp on the granite countertop, and Marta, my beautiful, ambitious, and apparently very busy wife, was completely out of it upstairs after another exhausting day at the agency. The text preview made my coffee taste like battery acid. Can't wait to feel you again tomorrow. That pathetic husband of yours has no idea what he's missing. You're incredible, baby. From someone named Vincent Harrington, her boss, the smug bastard who'd been over for dinner just last month, shaking my hand with that firm, confident grip, while apparently planning to screw my wife behind my back. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd actually liked the guy. I scrolled through the messages, each one a small knife twist in my chest. Hotel bookings, explicit photos, inside jokes about the clueless logistics guy at home, and how I probably couldn't satisfy a woman if I came with an instruction manual. Real classy stuff. 22 years of marriage, 2 kids in college, a mortgage we'd paid down together, family vacations where we'd laughed until our sides ached, and this is what it had come to. My wife and her boss sharing a laugh about my shortcomings while booking rooms at the downtown Marriott. The worst part? The timestamps showed they'd been at it for months. While I'd been working 60-hour weeks to pay for our daughter Amelia's art school tuition and our son Ross's computer science program, Marta had been getting her continuing education in Vincent's luxury condo. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Marta appeared in the kitchen doorway, her silk nightgown catching the light from the phone screen. Even at 44, she was stunning. Auburn hair, green eyes, the kind of figure that turned heads at the grocery store. No wonder Vincent wanted her. "Aidan, what are you doing up?" Her voice had that practiced innocence that I now realized she'd been perfecting for months. I held up her phone. "Vinny says hi." The color drained from her face faster than water down a drain. For a moment, she looked like a deer caught in headlights. Then her expression shifted into something I'd never seen before. Cold calculation. "It's not what you think," she said, moving toward me with her hands raised like she was approaching a wild animal. "Really? Because what I think is that you've been sleeping with your boss for the past 6 months while I've been working my ass off to keep this family afloat. What I think is that you two have been having a real good laugh about what a pathetic husband I am. What I think is that you've been lying to my face every single day." She tried to grab the phone, but I pulled it back. The movement was so quick, so desperate, that it told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a moment of weakness. This was a full-blown affair with a woman who'd become a stranger. "Aidan, please, let me explain." "Explain what? How you told him I grunt like a pig in bed? How you said I'm emotionally unavailable and probably on the spectrum? Or maybe you want to explain why you booked a room for this weekend while telling me you were visiting your sister in Cleveland?" Her jaw tightened. The mask was slipping, and underneath was someone I didn't recognize. "You went through my private messages. That's a violation of my privacy." I actually laughed. It came out harsh and bitter, echoing off the kitchen tiles. "Your privacy? Marta, you're my wife. We share a bed, a bank account, and 2 children. The only thing that should be private between us is what we're getting each other for Christmas. You don't understand the pressure I'm under at work. Vincent gets me in ways you never have. We connect on an intellectual level." Is that what they're calling it now? Because from these messages, it looks like you're connecting on a pretty basic physical level, too. She crossed her arms, and I saw a flash of the woman she'd become at the office, the account executive who could sell ice to Eskimos and had the corner office to prove it. Maybe if you'd paid attention to me instead of your spreadsheets and logistics reports, this wouldn't have happened. When's the last time we really talked, Aidan? When's the last time you made me feel desired? When's the last time you gave me the chance? You've been working late 3 nights a week for months. Every weekend there's some client dinner or company retreat. I thought you were building your career, not building a relationship with another man. The kitchen fell silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of Mrs. Voss next door letting her dog out for his middle-of-the-night bathroom break. Normal sounds from a normal night in a normal marriage that had just exploded into a million pieces. "What do you want me to say?" Marta's voice was flat now, devoid of the warmth I'd fallen in love with 23 years ago. "That I'm sorry, that it meant nothing. I want you to tell me the truth, all of it." She looked at me for a long moment, and I could see her weighing her options. Come clean and try to save the marriage, or double down and see if she could gaslight her way out of this. She chose option 2. Fine. Yes, Vincent and I have been seeing each other. Yes, we're in love. And yes, I was planning to ask for a divorce after the holidays because I didn't want to ruin Christmas for the kids. How thoughtful of you. Don't be sarcastic, Aidan. It doesn't suit you. You know what doesn't suit me, Marta? Finding out my wife thinks I'm a pathetic loser who can't satisfy a woman. You know what really doesn't suit me? Learning that half your office knows you're screwing the boss while I'm at home like some clueless idiot. Her eyes flashed. You are a clueless idiot. You've been sleepwalking through this marriage for years. When's the last time you surprised me with anything? When's the last time you looked at me like I was the most beautiful woman in the world? When's the last time you acted like you wanted me to? We stared at each other across the kitchen island. 22 years of marriage reduced to a standoff at 2:30 in the morning. I could see our reflection in the dark window behind her, a middle-aged couple in their nightclothes looking like strangers. I'm going back to bed, she said finally. We can talk about this tomorrow when we're both thinking clearly. We can talk about it right now. Are you in love with him? She hesitated just long enough to make the answer unnecessary. Yes. Are you planning to leave me for him? Yes. How long were you going to keep lying to me? As long as it took to figure out the best way to handle this. I nodded slowly. At least now we were being honest. Well, consider it handled. I forwarded the steamiest conversation thread to my own email address, then set her phone back on the counter. What did you just do? Insurance policy. You want to play games, Marta? I've been managing logistics for 20 years. I know how to plan ahead. Her face went white. You can't use those messages against me. That's blackmail. It's evidence. There's a difference. She grabbed her phone and started deleting messages frantically, her fingers flying over the screen. Little late for that, don't you think? She looked up at me with something approaching hatred. You bastard! No, sweetheart. I'm the clueless idiot, remember? But even clueless idiots learn eventually. I walked past her toward the stairs, then stopped. Oh, and Marta? You might want to let Vinny know that his wife's book club meets here next Thursday. Wouldn't want things to get awkward. The sound of her phone hitting the kitchen wall followed me upstairs. The next morning felt like waking up in someone else's life. Marta had already left for work. Probably needed some emergency strategy sessions with her boyfriend, and the house felt different, emptier, like someone had sucked all the warmth out of the walls. I sat in my home office, staring at the forwarded messages on my computer screen. In the harsh light of day, they were even worse. Detailed descriptions of their encounters, plans for weekend getaways, mocking observations about my appearance, my personality, my performance in bed. Dad thinks romance is remembering to put his dishes in the dishwasher, she'd written to Vincent. You make me feel like a woman again. Vincent's response. Can't wait to show you what a real man can do. A poor bastard probably thinks the G-spot is a parking space. Hilarious stuff. My phone buzzed with a text from my son Ross. Dad, there's something weird on Mom's iPad. Should I look? I called him immediately. Ross, what kind of weird? I don't know, some app I've never seen before. It's like a messaging thing, but not the usual ones. And there are photos. His voice trailed off. Don't look at anything else. I'm coming over to your apartment. Ross lived in a converted warehouse downtown, splitting rent with 3 other computer science majors. When I arrived, he was sitting at his desk with Marta's iPad, looking uncomfortable. Dad, I'm really sorry. I was just trying to update the software like Mom asked, and this app opened automatically. I didn't mean to snoop. You're not snooping, son. Show me what you found. The app was something called Discrete Messages, apparently designed for people who wanted to hide their communications. The photos made my stomach turn. Marta and Vincent in various states of undress, in locations I recognized as his downtown condo. But it was the messages that really got to me. Aidan's so pathetic, Marta had written. He actually thanked me for working so hard for the family when I got home from our weekend in Chicago. I felt sorry for him for about 2 seconds. Vincent, don't feel sorry for him. Feel sorry for yourself for wasting 20 years with a man who doesn't appreciate what he has. Marta, not much longer now. Once the kids are settled, I'm done. You and I can finally be together properly. Vincent, can't wait to have you all to myself. No more sneaking around, no more pretending to respect your boring husband. Ross was reading over my shoulder. Dad, I'm so sorry. It's not your fault, Ross. Your mother made her choices. What are you going to do? Good question. The old Aidan would have probably confronted her again, maybe suggested marriage counseling, tried to work things out for the sake of the family, But the old Aidan hadn't known that his wife and her lover were actively mocking him while planning his humiliation. "I'm going to think about it. Can you help me with something?" "Anything." "Can you recover deleted messages from her phone?" Ross grinned. It was the first time I'd seen him smile since this whole mess started. "Dad, I can recover messages from a phone that's been run over by a truck. Mom's iPhone is child's play." "What about location tracking? If someone had been hypothetically lying about where they were going?" "Find My iPhone keeps location history for months. Plus, if she's been using credit cards, there's a digital trail a mile wide." "And if someone wanted to, say, document all of this evidence in a way that would hold up legally?" Ross's grin got wider. "Dad, are you planning what I think you're planning?" "I'm planning to protect myself and you kids. Your mother wants to play games, but she forgot that I've spent 20 years managing supply chains. I know how to track things." Within 2 hours, Ross had assembled a digital dossier that would have impressed the FBI. Credit card receipts showing hotel charges on days Marta claimed to be visiting clients. Location data proving she'd been at Vincent's condo when she said she was at company retreats. Deleted text messages going back 6 months, including detailed plans for their affair. But the real goldmine was her email. Apparently Marta had been careless with her password. It was our anniversary date, which would have been touching if she wasn't using it to coordinate cheating on me. The emails revealed the full scope of their relationship. Vincent wasn't just her lover. He was actively helping her plan our divorce. They'd discussed asset division, custody arrangements, even which lawyer she should hire. All while I was working overtime to pay for our daughter's art supplies and our son's textbooks. "Dad, there's something else," Ross said, pointing to a recent email thread. "Look at this." It was a conversation between Marta and Vincent about me specifically. "Aidan's been acting suspicious," Marta had written. "He asked me about working late twice this week." Vincent's response chilled me. Maybe it's time to give him a reason to want the divorce. I know some people who could help make him look unstable. A few incidents, some witnesses, and you'd get full custody plus alimony. Marta. I don't want to hurt him. I just want out. Vincent. Sweetheart, you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. Trust me, I know how these things work. I stared at the screen. They weren't just planning to leave me. They were planning to destroy me. Dad? You okay? I'm fine, Ross. Better than fine, actually. What do you mean? I looked at my son. 22 years old, brilliant, loyal, everything a father could want in a kid. He deserved better than watching his family implode because his mother had decided to trade in her boring husband for a more exciting model. I mean, your mother just made a very big mistake. She forgot that logistics isn't just about moving products from point A to point B. It's about strategy, planning, anticipating your opponent's moves and staying 3 steps ahead. So what's your next move? I'm going to pay a visit to your mother's office. Time to do some reconnaissance. The Harrington and Associates building was a gleaming tower of glass and steel downtown, the kind of place where people wore expensive suits and had important meetings about nothing. I'd been there dozens of times for company parties and family events, but never as an enemy spy. The lobby was all marble and modern art, with a receptionist who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. I signed in as a delivery person. One of the advantages of working in logistics is that you know how to blend in with the working class. Marta's floor was buzzing with activity. Account executives rushing between meetings, creative types clustering around computers, the usual chaos of an advertising agency. I spotted Sienna Walsh immediately, Marta's best friend and office confidant, a sharp-tongued woman who'd never liked me. She was standing by the coffee machine with Jake Turnbull, the agency's copy chief. Both of them were talking in low voices, occasionally glancing toward Vincent's corner office. I positioned myself near a display of award plaques where I could hear their conversation. Can't believe she's still pretending nothing's happening, Sienna was saying. Everyone knows about her and Vincent. Poor Aidan, Jake replied, but his tone suggested he didn't feel particularly sorry for me. He seems like such a nice guy. Too bad he's completely clueless. Nice guys finish last, Sienna said with a laugh. Vincent's got everything Aidan doesn't. Money, power, charisma. Can you blame her for upgrading? I suppose not. Still feels a bit cruel, though, leading the husband on while planning to dump him. That's life. Marta deserves to be happy, and if that means trading in her boring logistics husband for a CEO, more power to her. I'd heard enough. I walked over to them with my best friendly smile. Sienna, Jake, good to see you. They both looked like they'd been caught stealing from the petty cash fund. Aidan, Sienna's voice was artificially bright. What brings you here? Just thought I'd surprise Marta with lunch. Is she around? Sienna and Jake exchanged a look that spoke volumes. She's in a meeting, Jake said carefully. Off-site client presentation. Won't be back until this afternoon? Oh, that's too bad. What about Vincent? Maybe I'll say hello while I'm here. Another loaded glance between them. He's at the same meeting, Sienna said quickly. Big client, very important. Of course he is. I pulled out my phone and made a show of checking Marta's location. According to Find My iPhone, she was at Vincent's condo across town. Well, I guess I'll just leave this for her then. I placed a small gift bag on the nearby counter. Inside was a lipstick-stained napkin from our kitchen table, the same shade Marta had been wearing the night I confronted her. A little message to let her know I was paying attention. What's that? Sienna asked, eyeing the bag suspiciously. Just a little something to let her know I'm thinking about her. I headed for the elevator, but not before I heard Sienna whisper to Jake, This is getting messy. She had no idea how messy it was about to get. 3 days later, I was standing in my walk-in closet, choosing what to wear to Harrington and Associates' annual holiday party. Marta was in the bathroom, applying makeup with the concentration of a surgeon. You don't have to come tonight if you don't want to, she said, not looking at me in the mirror. I know work parties aren't really your thing. Wouldn't miss it for the world, I replied, adjusting my tie. I'm looking forward to seeing Vincent again. It's been too long. Her hand slipped, smearing mascara across her cheek. She quickly wiped it away. Aidan, about what happened the other night. What about it? I think we should talk. Really talk. About our marriage. About what we both want. I know what you want, Marta. The question is whether you're brave enough to be honest about it. She turned to face me, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of the woman I'd married. Vulnerable, uncertain. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did anyway. It just happened. Vincent and we connected in a way that I didn't expect. I tried to fight it, but you decided it was easier to lie to me for 6 months instead of having an adult conversation about our marriage. She looked away. It's complicated. No, Marta, it's really not. You wanted something different, and instead of talking to your husband about it, you decided to get it somewhere else. That's not complicated. That's just selfish. The ride to the party was silent. Marta spent the entire time on her phone, probably coordinating with Vincent about how to handle the evening. I spent it thinking about the folder in my briefcase. Copies of every message, every photo, every piece of evidence that Ross and I had compiled. The party was being held at the downtown Marriott, the same hotel where Marta and Vincent had been meeting for their afternoon encounters. The irony was almost too perfect. The ballroom was decorated in silver and gold, with round tables scattered around a dance floor. A jazz trio played in one corner, while servers circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. It was elegant, expensive, and exactly the kind of event where people showed off their success. Vincent spotted us immediately. He was holding court near the bar, surrounded by junior executives and clients, looking every inch the successful CEO in his tailored suit and confident smile. When he saw Marta, his eyes lit up in a way that made my stomach clench. Aidan! Marta! So glad you could make it. He strode over with his arms open, embracing Marta just a little too long and shaking my hand with that firm grip I'd once admired. Vincent, thanks for having us. Beautiful party. Only the best for our team. Marta, you look absolutely stunning tonight. My wife blushed like a teenager. Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself. I watched them look at each other, and it was like watching two people share a private joke. Everyone around us could see it. The lingering glances, the subtle body language, the way they seemed to orbit each other. Can I get you both drinks? Vincent asked. I'll have a scotch, I said. Neat. Marta? White wine. You know what I like. Of course he did. As Vincent headed to the bar, Sienna appeared at Marta's elbow like a bad rash. Marta, you look amazing. That dress is perfect on you. Thanks, you look great too. Sienna turned to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Aidan, how nice that you decided to join us. I know these work events can be a bit boring for spouses. Not boring at all. I find it fascinating to watch people in their natural habitat. Her smile faltered slightly. Well, just remember that this is Marta's night to shine. She's been working so hard lately. Oh, I know exactly how hard she's been working. Marta shot me a warning look, but I was past caring about keeping up appearances. Vincent returned with our drinks, and we made small talk about the agency's recent successes. He was charming, I had to give him that. The kind of man who could make you feel like the most important person in the room while he was planning to stab you in the back. Aidan, Marta tells me you're in logistics. That must be interesting work. It has its moments, lots of problem solving, tracking things down, making sure everything ends up where it's supposed to be. I imagine that requires a lot of attention to detail. You'd be surprised what you can discover when you really start paying attention. Vincent's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. I'm sure. The evening progressed with the usual party rituals. Speeches about the agency's success, awards for outstanding performance, toasts to another profitable year. I watched Marta and Vincent navigate the crowd, never standing too close together but always aware of where the other was. It was during the dinner portion that things got interesting. I found myself seated at a table with Jake Turnbull and several other agency employees, while Marta was at the head table with Vincent and the other executives. So Aidan, said a woman I didn't recognize, what do you think of all the changes at the agency this year? Changes? Jake cleared his throat uncomfortably. New management structure, that sort of thing. Ah, well, I think it's important for people to know where they stand. Transparency is key in any organization. Absolutely, the woman agreed, though sometimes transparency can be uncomfortable. She glanced meaningfully toward the head table, where Vincent was leaning close to Marta, whispering something in her ear that made her laugh. Uncomfortable for whom? I asked. Well, you know, when workplace relationships develop, it can create awkward situations for everyone involved. The table went quiet. I could feel everyone watching me, waiting to see how the clueless husband would react to this obvious hint about his wife's affair. I took a sip of my scotch and smiled. You're absolutely right. Workplace relationships can be very messy, especially when they involve people in positions of power. So many potential complications, HR issues, conflicts of interest, questions about favoritism, not to mention the impact on families. The woman looked like she wished she'd never brought up the subject. Of course, sometimes these things work out, Jake said quickly, if everyone's mature about it. Maturity is definitely important, I agreed. Though I've found that people who sneak around and lie usually aren't as mature as they think they are. The conversation died completely. I excused myself to get another drink. At the bar, I found myself standing next to Vincent. He was waiting for 2 glasses of champagne, probably for himself and Marta. Great party, I said. Thanks. We try to treat our people well. I can see that. You seem to take a very personal interest in your employees. He turned to look at me, and for the first time that evening, his mask slipped slightly. I care about everyone who works for me. Some more than others, I imagine. What's that supposed to mean? I pulled out my phone and opened the photo gallery Ross had prepared for me. The first image was Vincent and Marta in his condo, taken from what was obviously a security camera. I think you know exactly what it means. Vincent's face went white. Where did you get that? Does it matter? The question is, what are we going to do about it? He glanced around the crowded bar, then grabbed my arm. We need to talk, privately. No, Vincent, we need to talk publicly, very publicly. I walked back toward the dinner tables, Vincent following behind me like a man heading to his execution. The jazz trio had finished their set, and the room was filled with the comfortable buzz of conversation and clinking glasses. I stopped at the head table where Marta was sitting with the other executives. She looked up at me with a mixture of confusion and growing alarm. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, raising my voice just enough to cut through the chatter, could I have your attention for a moment? The room gradually fell quiet. All eyes turned toward me, and I could see Marta's face draining of color. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank Vincent for his hospitality tonight, and for the very special attention he's been giving my wife. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Vincent stepped forward, his hand raised. Aidan, I think there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding at all. I pulled out the folder from my briefcase and began distributing copies of the printed messages and photos to the tables around me. I think everyone should see what kind of man they're working for. Chaos erupted. People grabbed for the papers. Voices rose in shock and excitement, and I could hear someone say, "Oh my God, is that Vincent and Marta?" Marta stood up so quickly she knocked over her chair. Aidan, stop this right now. Why? Aren't you proud of your relationship? You told Vincent you were tired of sneaking around. Vincent was frantically trying to collect the papers, but there were too many copies and too many eager hands. The photos were particularly popular, high-resolution images of the happy couple in various compromising positions. You can't do this, Vincent said, his face red with anger and embarrassment. This is harassment. I'll have you arrested. For what? Sharing the truth? Everything here is documented fact. Your affair with my wife, your plans to frame me as an unfit husband, your intimate knowledge of her preferences. All true, all documented, all very public now. Sienna appeared at Marta's side, her face a mask of shock and scandal-hungry excitement. Marta, is this real? Sienna, I can explain. Can you explain this? I held up a printout of one of Marta's messages. Quote, Aidan's so boring in bed, I have to think about Vincent just to get through it. Thank God I found a real man who knows what he's doing. The room fell completely silent. Even the servers had stopped moving, frozen with trays of champagne and canapes. Marta's face crumpled. Please stop. Stop what? Telling the truth? You and Vincent have been telling the truth about me for months, sharing intimate details about our marriage, laughing about my shortcomings, planning my humiliation. I'm just returning the favor. Vincent stepped between us, his chest puffed out like he was ready for a fight. That's enough. You've made your point. Now get out before I call security. I laughed. It came out harder and colder than I'd intended. Your security? Vincent, in about 10 minutes, you're not going to have security. You're not going to have a job, because I sent copies of everything to your board of directors an hour ago, along with a detailed report about your abuse of power and harassment of employees. His face went from red to gray. What? Did you really think Marta was the only one? I did some digging. Turns out you have a pattern of sleeping with subordinates. The board is very interested in discussing your management style. I turned to address the room one final time. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for disrupting your evening, but I thought you should know what kind of people you're working for. A CEO who abuses his power to seduce married employees, and an account executive who lies to her husband while planning to destroy his life. I headed for the exit, but not before I heard Vincent's voice behind me. You bastard. You've ruined everything. I stopped and turned back to him. No, Vincent, you ruined everything. I just made sure everyone knew about it. The last thing I saw before leaving was Marta collapsed in her chair, as Sienna standing over her with a look of horrified fascination, and Vincent standing alone in the middle of the ballroom, surrounded by his employees and clients, all staring at him like he was a stranger. Outside in the parking garage, I sat in my car for a moment, listening to my heart pound. 22 years of marriage, ended in a hotel ballroom in front of 100 people. My phone buzzed with a text from Ross. Dad, are you okay? Mom's been calling me crying. I typed back, I'm fine. Better than fine. Phase 1 complete. Phase 1? Son, we're just getting started. The next morning, I woke up in my own bed for what I knew would be one of the last times. Marta hadn't come home. According to the Find My iPhone app that Ross had helped me access, she'd spent the night at Vincent's condo, probably planning their next move. My phone had been buzzing all night with calls and texts from people who'd been at the party. Some were supportive. Others were just fishing for more gossip. The most interesting message came from Jake Turnbull at 2:47 a.m. Aidan, we need to talk. There's more you should know. I met Jake at a diner downtown, the kind of place where the coffee was strong and the conversations were private. He looked like he hadn't slept, his usually perfect hair disheveled and his eyes tired and strained. I feel like a piece of shit for not telling you sooner, he said without preamble. Tell me what? About Vincent. About what he's really like. Jake stirred his coffee nervously. You know I've been at the agency for 8 years, right? I've seen him do this before. Do what? Target married women. It's like a game to him. The challenge of seducing someone who's supposedly unavailable, then discarding them when he gets bored. You're saying Marta isn't his first affair? She's not even his first affair this year. There was Jennifer in accounting, lasted about 4 months. Before that, Lisa from the creative department. Both married, both convinced he was going to leave his wife for them. What happened to them? Jennifer got fired for performance issues after she started making demands about their relationship. Lisa transferred to our Seattle office to get a fresh start. Vincent's very good at cleaning up his messes. I thought about the emails Ross and I had found. Vincent's casual mention of making me look unstable. This wasn't passion or love. It was predatory behavior. Why didn't anyone report him? Jake laughed bitterly. Report him to whom? He owns 60% of the company. The board members are his golf buddies, and the women he targets are always too embarrassed or scared to come forward. But you said I sent evidence to the board last night. You did, and it's causing quite a stir. Vincent called an emergency meeting for this morning. Word is, his wife finally found out too. Someone at the party called her. I felt a grim satisfaction. Vincent's wife, Patricia, was a formidable woman who came from old money. If she was finally aware of her husband's extracurricular activities, his life was about to get very complicated. There's something else, Jake continued. Sienna's been running her mouth all morning, trying to do damage control for Marta. She's telling anyone who'll listen that you're unstable, that you've been stalking Marta, that the whole thing last night was some kind of breakdown. Let her talk. I have documentation for everything. That's the thing. She's not just talking to coworkers. She called your daughter. My heart raced. She did what? Amelia called the office this morning, trying to reach Marta. Sienna took the call and fed her some story about how worried everyone is about you, how you've been acting erratically, how they're afraid you might hurt yourself or someone else. I was already reaching for my phone. Amelia answered on the first ring. Dad? Oh my God, are you okay? This woman from Mom's office called and said you had some kind of breakdown last night. She said you were making threats and that Mom's afraid to come home. Amelia, sweetheart, I'm fine. The woman who called you is lying. But she knew things, Dad. She knew about you and Mom having problems. She said Mom's been trying to get help for your mental health issues, but you've been refusing treatment. I closed my eyes. Vincent and his allies were already working to control the narrative, painting me as the unstable husband who couldn't handle his wife's success. Amelia, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Your mother has been having an affair with her boss for 6 months. Last night, I presented evidence of that affair at their company party. Now they're trying to make me look crazy to cover up what they did. Silence on the other end of the line. Dad, that's a really serious accusation. I know it is, and I can prove every word of it. Can you drive up from school today? I think you and Ross need to see the evidence for yourselves. Yes, I can be there by this afternoon. After I hung up, Jake was staring at me with something approaching admiration. You're really going to war with them, aren't you? They fired the first shot when they decided to destroy my reputation to cover their tracks. I'm just returning fire. What's your next move? I thought about the folder of evidence sitting in my car, the recordings Ross had helped me make, the financial documents showing Vincent's pattern of using company resources for his affairs. I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who they're dealing with. That afternoon, Ross and Amelia sat in my home office, going through the evidence with the grim concentration of crime scene investigators. Amelia kept shaking her head in disbelief. I can't believe Mom would say these things about you. This message where she calls you inadequate. Dad, that's so cruel. The cruelty is the point, Ross said, his jaw tight with anger. She and Vincent were getting off on humiliating Dad behind his back. But why? You and Mom seemed happy. I mean, not perfect, but happy. I looked at my daughter, 20 years old, studying art at a prestigious school, still young enough to believe that love conquered all. People change, sweetheart. Your mother wanted something different, and instead of talking to me about it, she decided to find it somewhere else. But to mock you like this, to plan to make you look unstable in a divorce, that's not just wanting something different. That's evil. Your mother isn't evil, Amelia. She's selfish, and she made bad choices. But Vincent is the one who encouraged her to see me as the enemy instead of as her husband. Ross pulled up another screen on his laptop. Dad, there's more. I've been tracking Vincent's digital footprint, and this guy is seriously messed up. He's got dating profiles on 3 different apps, all while married. He's been messaging college-aged women, offering them internships at his agency. Are you serious? Very serious. And get this. He's been using company funds to pay for hotel rooms and dinners for his affairs. I found credit card statements going back 2 years. We're talking about tens of thousands of dollars in what's basically embezzlement. Amelia looked sick. Mom's involved with this guy. Dad, you have to stop her. I can't stop her, sweetheart. She's an adult who made her own choices, but I can make sure she understands the consequences of those choices. My phone rang. It was Milo Reeves, an old friend who'd left the police force to become a private investigator. I'd called him that morning. Aidan, I've got some interesting news about your boy Vincent. I'm listening. Turns out he's been under investigation by the state attorney general's office for campaign finance violations, something about funneling money to political candidates through his agency. And there's a harassment lawsuit that was settled quietly last year. Different company, but same pattern of behavior. How did you find this out so quickly? Vincent Harrington isn't as clean as he pretends to be. He's got enemies in high places, people who've been waiting for an opportunity to take him down. Your little stunt last night has them very excited. What kind of enemies? The kind with law enforcement connections and long memories. Let's just say that your evidence about his affair with your wife is the least of his problems right now. After I hung up, I looked at my kids. Ross was grinning like a shark, and even Amelia looked grimly satisfied. So what happens now? She asked. Now we wait. Vincent's world is about to collapse, and your mother is going to have to decide whether she wants to go down with the ship. That evening, Marta finally came home. She looked terrible. Her makeup smeared, her hair disheveled, her expensive dress wrinkled. She found me in the kitchen, exactly where this whole mess had started 4 days ago. Aidan, we need to talk. I'm listening. What you did last night was unforgivable. You humiliated me in front of my colleagues. You destroyed my career. You ruined everything. I told the truth. If the truth destroyed your career, maybe you should have thought about that before you started sleeping with your boss. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Vincent and I, we were going to handle things properly. We were going to wait until after the holidays, sit down with you like adults, while he framed me as an unfit husband and took our children away from me. She looked genuinely confused. What are you talking about? I showed her the printed emails about Vincent's plan to make me look unstable. She read them with growing horror. I never agreed to this. I told him I didn't want to hurt you. But you were okay with lying to me for 6 months. You were okay with mocking our marriage to your lover. You were okay with planning our divorce behind my back. Tears started running down her cheeks. I was confused. I felt trapped. Vincent made me feel alive again, made me feel desirable. I know that doesn't excuse what I did, but I never wanted it to get this ugly. It got ugly the moment you decided to betray our marriage vows. What do you want from me, Aidan? You want me to grovel? You want me to beg for forgiveness? Fine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry I lied. I'm sorry I made you feel like you weren't enough. I looked at this woman I'd been married to for 22 years, and I felt nothing. No anger, no love, no desire for reconciliation. Just a cold, empty certainty that we were finished. I don't want your apology, Marta. It's too late for that. Then what do you want? I want you to understand that actions have consequences. You chose Vincent over our marriage. Now you get to live with that choice. Vincent's wife kicked him out. The board is meeting tomorrow to discuss his future with the company. Half the office thinks I'm a home-wrecking slut. I've lost everything. No, you've lost your safety net. You've lost the comfortable lie that you could have both a marriage and an affair without anyone getting hurt. But you haven't lost everything. You still have Vincent, right? Isn't that what you wanted? She was crying harder now, mascara streaming down her face. He's not the man I thought he was. When everything fell apart last night, he didn't protect me. He didn't stand up for me. He just worried about saving his own skin. What did you expect? He's a predator, Marta. You weren't his first affair, and you wouldn't have been his last. Her head snapped up. What do you mean? I told her about my conversation with Jake, about Vincent's pattern of targeting married women, about the other affairs and the financial crimes and the pending investigations. You were just his latest conquest, and when he got bored with you, he would have discarded you just like he did the others. She sank into a kitchen chair, her face buried in her hands. I've destroyed everything for nothing. Yes, you have. Is there any chance? Can we try to work this out? Go to counseling, start over? I looked at her, really looked at her, and tried to find some remnant of the woman I'd fallen in love with. But all I saw was a stranger who'd chosen to betray everything we'd built together. No, Marta. We can't. Please, Aidan, I know I don't deserve it, but please, I'll do anything. You can start by moving out. Tonight. She looked up at me with desperate eyes. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem anymore. You're really going to throw away 22 years just like that? I'm not throwing anything away. You already did that. She sat there for a long moment, then slowly stood up. I'll pack some things. Take whatever you want. I'll have the locks changed tomorrow. As she headed upstairs, I heard her phone ring. She answered it with a shaky voice. Vincent? No, I can't come over. Your wife might be there. What do you mean, figure it out? You said you loved me? Vincent? Vincent? I heard the phone hit the floor, followed by a sound I'd never heard from my wife in 22 years of marriage. The sound of complete despair. But I felt nothing. She'd made her choice, and now she had to live with it, just like I had to live with mine. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in my lawyer's office, signing the final divorce papers. Marta had moved into a studio apartment across town after Vincent made it clear that their relationship was over. The board had fired him the day after our confrontation, and his wife had taken him to the cleaners in their divorce. Last I heard, he was selling insurance in Phoenix and living in a one-bedroom apartment. Your wife's attorney tried to argue for spousal support, my lawyer said, but given the circumstances of the affair and the documentation you provided, the judge wasn't sympathetic. What about the house? You keep it. She waived her claim in exchange for half the retirement accounts. Honestly, Aidan, she got off easy. If you'd wanted to pursue damages for emotional distress or alienation of affection, you probably could have. I just want it to be over. And it almost was. The divorce would be final in 30 days. Ross and Amelia had both made it clear they wanted nothing to do with their mother until she got her act together. Marta's career was effectively over. No agency in the city would hire someone with her reputation. But there was one more thing I needed to do. That evening, I drove to Hannigan's Bar, the place where Sienna and Jake used to hold court, spreading gossip about everyone at the agency. It was a typical after-work crowd, tired professionals drowning their stress in overpriced cocktails and craft beer. Sienna was there, as I knew she would be, surrounded by a small group of coworkers. She was holding forth about the latest agency drama, probably spinning some version of events that painted her and Marta as the victims. I walked up to their table and pulled out an empty chair. "Mind if I join you?" The conversation came to a halt. Sienna stared at me as if I were a dangerous animal that had somehow wandered into her living room. "Aidan, I didn't expect to see you here." "I bet you didn't. Can I buy everyone around?" The others at the table looked uncomfortable, but they nodded. I signaled the waitress and ordered drinks for everyone. "So," I said, settling back in my chair, "I hear you've been telling people some interesting stories about me." "I don't know what you mean." "Sure you do. The stories about how I'm mentally unstable, how I stalked my wife, how I'm dangerous and unpredictable." Sienna's face flushed red. "I was just concerned about Marta. What you did to her at the party was cruel." "What I did was tell the truth. What you did was try to destroy my reputation to protect your friend's lies. She made a mistake. She didn't deserve to be humiliated like that." I pulled out my phone and opened the recording app. Ross had helped me set it up to capture conversations clearly. "Tell me, Sienna, what exactly did Marta tell you about our marriage? I'm not discussing this with you. Come on, we're all friends here. What did she say about me as a husband, as a lover? I'm curious to know how much of her private life she shared with you." Sienna looked around the table nervously. The other coworkers were watching with the fascination of people witnessing a car accident. "She said you two had grown apart, that you didn't understand her anymore." "Is that all?" "She said you were physically distant, that you didn't make her feel desired. Anything else?" Sienna was squirming now, but she couldn't resist the opportunity to justify her friend's behavior. "She said you were boring in bed, that you didn't know how to satisfy a woman, that Vincent showed her what she'd been missing." The table went completely silent. I smiled and held up my phone. "Thank you. That's exactly what I needed." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I now have you on record repeating the intimate details of my marriage that my wife shared with you and her lover. Details that were used to humiliate and belittle me while they conducted their affair?" Sienna went pale. "You can't record people without their consent." "Actually, I can. This is a one-party consent state. And since you just admitted to participating in a campaign to damage my reputation based on private information obtained through adultery, you might want to talk to a lawyer." I stood up and dropped a 20 on the table. "Drinks are on me. Oh, and Sienna, you might want to be more careful about the stories you tell. You never know who might be listening." As I walked away, I heard one of the other co-workers say, "Holy shit, Sienna, I think you just confessed to defamation." Outside the bar, I sat in my car and called Ross. "Dad, how did it go?" "Phase 2 complete. How's the website coming?" "Almost finished. Are you sure you want to do this?" Over the past 2 weeks, Ross had been helping me create a comprehensive documentation of everything that had happened. Not just the affair, but Vincent's pattern of predatory behavior, the financial crimes, the attempts to frame me as unstable. We'd built a website that laid out the entire story with evidence, testimonials, and legal documents. I'm sure these people tried to destroy my life to cover up their own crimes. They need to understand that actions have consequences. "What about Mom?" I thought about Marta, alone in her studio apartment, her career in ruins, abandoned by the man she'd thrown away her marriage for. Your mother made her choices. She could have come to me honestly about our marriage problems. She could have asked for counseling or separation or divorce. Instead, she chose to lie, cheat, and participate in a plan to destroy my reputation. She gets to live with the consequences of those choices. I love you, Dad. I love you too, son. The website went live the next morning. Within hours, it was being shared across social media, picked up by local news outlets, and forwarded through professional networks. The story had everything people loved: scandal, betrayal, corporate corruption, and a satisfying comeuppance for the villains. Vincent's insurance career lasted exactly 3 days before his new employer saw the website and fired him. Sienna was let go from the agency after several clients complained about her involvement in the scandal. Marta's name became synonymous with adultery and betrayal in our professional community. But the real victory came 2 weeks later when I received a call from Detective Sarah Martinez with the State Attorney General's office. "Mr. Brooks, I wanted to thank you for the information you provided about Vincent Harrington's financial activities. Based on your evidence and our investigation, we're filing charges for embezzlement, fraud, and campaign finance violations. What kind of charges? Felony charges. If convicted, he's looking at 5 to 10 years in prison. I felt a deep satisfaction settle in my chest. Vincent hadn't just destroyed my marriage. He'd been systematically stealing from his company and corrupting the political process. Now he would face real consequences. What about the other women he victimized? 3 of them have come forward since your story became public. We're building a case for harassment and abuse of power as well. After I hung up, I walked through my house. My house now, not ours. It felt different, cleaner, like a weight had been lifted from the walls themselves. My phone buzzed with a text from Amelia. Dad, I'm so proud of you. You didn't just get revenge, you got justice. She was right. This hadn't been about petty revenge or wounded pride. It had been about holding people accountable for their actions, about refusing to be painted as the villain in someone else's story of betrayal. That evening, I was having dinner at a restaurant downtown when I saw a familiar figure at the bar. It was Jake Turnbull, drinking alone and looking like he'd aged 10 years in the past month. I walked over and sat down next to him. Jake? Aidan, hell of a thing you did. Which part? All of it. Vincent's finished. The agency's in chaos. Half the staff has quit or been fired. What about you? I'm starting my own firm. Turns out there are a lot of clients who don't want to be associated with the Harrington name anymore. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. You know, Jake said finally, I always thought you were too nice for your own good. Turns out I was wrong. I'm not nice, Jake. I'm just patient. There's a difference. What's next for you? I thought about that. The divorce would be final in 2 weeks. Ross and Amelia were both thriving in school. My logistics business was doing better than ever. Apparently being the wronged husband in a public scandal was good for business. I'm thinking about writing a book. How to Destroy Your Enemies Legally, a guide for the betrayed husband. Jake laughed. You'd make a fortune. Maybe, or maybe I'll just enjoy my quiet life. No drama, no lies, no cheating wives. Sounds peaceful. It is. As I drove home that night, I passed by Marta's apartment building. Her car was in the parking lot, and I could see a light in what I assumed was her window. For a moment, I wondered what she was doing, whether she was lonely, whether she regretted her choices. Then I remembered the messages she'd sent to Vincent, mocking our marriage and planning my destruction, and I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. She'd wanted excitement. She'd wanted passion. She'd wanted a man who could make her feel alive. Instead, she got exactly what she deserved. Nothing. Hell, I pulled into my driveway and sat for a moment, looking at my house. Our house. My house. The place where I'd raised my children, built my life, and learned that the person you trust most in the world can become your worst enemy. But I'd survived. More than survived. I'd won. Vincent was facing prison time. Sienna was unemployed and unemployable. Marta was alone, broke, and professionally ruined. And I was free. Free from lies. Free from betrayal. Free from people who thought they could use and discard me without consequences. I walked into my house, poured myself a glass of good scotch, and raised it in a toast to the empty kitchen. To new beginnings, I said aloud, and to the people stupid enough to underestimate the boring logistics guy. The house was quiet, peaceful, mine. For the first time in months, I slept like a baby. 6 months later, I was sitting in the front row of a federal courthouse watching Vincent Harrington get sentenced to 7 years in prison for embezzlement, fraud, and harassment. He looked nothing like the confident CEO who'd once shaken my hand at dinner parties. In fact, prison orange didn't suit him at all. It was as if the very color symbolized the unraveling of his carefully constructed facade. There he sat, handcuffed, his once pristine suit now replaced with the standard issue of The Convicted. His face, once full of arrogant confidence, was now etched with the realization of how badly he had miscalculated. Marta wasn't there. She had moved to another state, trying to rebuild her life away from the scandal that had engulfed everything she'd touched. The shame of her actions had driven her to disappear, to put as much distance as she could between herself and the consequences of her betrayal. We hadn't spoken since the divorce was finalized, the silence between us now a chasm that neither of us had the desire to cross. It was strange how much someone could change in just a few months, how quickly the dynamics of your life could shift from shared intimacy to cold indifference. After the sentencing, I walked out into the bright afternoon sunshine, the warmth of the sun on my face almost comforting, like a new chapter waiting to be written. I pulled out my phone and called my kids. "Dad?" Ross answered, his voice tentative but hopeful. "How did it go?" 7 years, I said, the words coming easily now, without the weight they once carried. Holy shit. Sorry, I mean, it's okay, son. Holy shit is exactly right. Are you happy? I thought about that question for a moment. Was I happy? I could have said I was relieved, or satisfied, or even victorious. I could have said that justice had been served, that the people who had tried to destroy me had finally been held accountable for their actions. And all of that was true. But when I really dug deep, I realized something. I wasn't just happy about the outcome. I was free. Free from the shackles of a marriage built on lies and manipulation. Free from the toxic people who had spent years seeing me as weak, boring, or disposable. Free to rebuild my life, to finally take control of my future and craft the life I had always deserved. Yeah, I said finally. I'm happy. Good. You deserve to be, Ross said, and I could hear the warmth in his voice, the relief that his dad was no longer a victim of someone else's cruelty. As I walked to my car, the weight of the moment hit me all over again. I thought about the journey that had brought me here, the long, painful road from the moment I found out about Marta's affair to the deep gut punch of betrayal, and eventually to this moment of vindication. It had all started with a buzzing phone in a dark kitchen at 2:17 a.m., the worst kind of discovery a husband could make. And it had ended, after months of strategizing and plotting, with justice. But it wasn't just about revenge. People always say that revenge is a dish best served cold, but they're wrong about one thing. Sometimes revenge isn't about getting even. Sometimes it's about making sure the truth comes to light, no matter how ugly that truth might be. Sometimes the truth is the most powerful weapon you can wield. Vincent had thought he could take my wife, destroy my reputation, and face no consequences. Marta had thought she could betray our marriage, convince herself she was justified, and paint me as the villain in our story. And Sienna, ever the loyal friend, had thought she could spread lies about me to protect her friend from the fallout. They all learned the same lesson. Underestimate the boring guy at your own peril. As I drove home through the city I'd lived in for 25 years, I passed the agency where Marta had worked, the hotel where she had betrayed our marriage, and the bar where her friends had mocked me behind my back. But this time, none of it hurt. It wasn't that the memories didn't carry weight. They did. But they had lost their power over me. Now they were just geography. Places where other people had made bad choices. And those choices had led to predictable consequences. At home, I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. There was a sense of calm now, an almost surreal peace in the quiet of the house. I was finally alone, finally free, and I knew I had a story to tell. I began typing the first chapter of my book. The title page read, "The Last Laugh, How I Destroyed My Cheating Wife's Life and Sent Her Lover to Prison, Legally." Chapter 1 began. The kitchen clock read 2:17 a.m. when I discovered that my wife was having an affair, and let me tell you, revenge is a lot more satisfying when you take your time and do it right. I smiled as I wrote. The words flowed easily. The catharsis of finally putting the story down on paper, of telling it from my perspective, was more therapeutic than I had anticipated. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about sharing the journey I had taken to get to this point, to show the world that sometimes the quiet ones, the ones who sit back and take it, are the ones you should be most careful of. I couldn't help but laugh to myself. It was going to be a bestseller. After all, everyone loves a story where the good guy wins. Everyone loves the underdog who takes down the villain, who rises from the ashes and makes something better out of the destruction. And this time, that good guy was me. I leaned back in my chair, feeling a sense of satisfaction that I hadn't felt in years. This was my story, my victory, and no one could take it away from me.